I so believe in personalized education because I think
Yeah.
personalizing educational opportunities and
Hmm.
personalizing learning in
Yeah.
general is so important. And I think in order for us to foster curiosity again, modeling, asking questions, being vulnerable,
Yeah.
choosing your
Yeah.
community, I think is
Yes.
so vital. Be
Yeah.
around people who question constantly.
Hi, I'm Amber.
And I'm Elayna. We're glad you're here to join us where
Everything is learning.
Hi.
Hey,
How's it going?
I am doing really well today. How are you?
Good. I am doing pretty well today too. Yeah.
Nice.
Time is flying. I tell you what.
So quick.
But coffee is consistent. So,
that
thank
really
the
should be a
universe.
t-shirt.
Right?
Thank the universe. That should be on the back of the t-shirt. I love it. Time is flying, but coffee is consistent. Thank the universe.
That was just so like, wow. That was deep today. That was
Yeah. I love when we do that.
I think
Or when you do that.
That's the power of the coffee bean. That's amazing stuff. I tell you what. Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh man.
Magic.
Right?
Magic beans.
Uh,
That's what Jack found.
yeah, exactly. That's how that fairy tale actually went.
Yeah.
Lord, right? Yeah. Speaking of Jack, he was pretty curious because I'm not sure I'm willing to trade for random things. But all right, you go off.
Family starving. Check. Magic beans. Excellent
Got
choice.
those. Can we eat them? No. They make a giant beanstalk. Can we eat that? No. Why did we get them? I was curious. So maybe. But listen, I mean, he got a pretty great experience out of it.
He did. Life experience.
And
true
no
life
one
experience.
died of hunger, according to the story, allegedly. I mean,
No.
they don't say that. So I guess it all worked out fine.
Yeah.
They got what they needed. It worked out.
Absolutely.
I was about to say, see, maybe that's where curiosity started dying, but no. It's okay.
Yeah.
It pulled through in the end. It worked out. That's what. So that makes me think, like, a friend of mine and I, we went out to lunch recently, and she's got young kids, as some people do. Whatever. Listen, I'm just proud of keeping myself and my partner alive. That's all I got,
Preach.
So kudos to everybody who has living things that they take care of every day, like respect. Anyway, so she's asking, we're talking and her kids come up and getting ready for one of them to go to kindergarten. She's like, all right, I need to know. What does my kid need to know before kindergarten? Like, what do I have to make sure she knows?
And
I was like, right? That's fair.
Yeah.
And I could tell she kind of wanted me to say something academic, right?
Right.
Makes sense. That's what we think. And so I was like, well, I think the biggest, like, most important thing is just curiosity.
Right.
Making sure she's curious. That's the most important thing you can instill in your child.
Yeah, $1 million answer.
Right?
Love
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. If only that were true. Like, it just rained down like a game show or something as I'm talking. $1 million, that is it. That's the answer. Should have happened. Sky should have parted and confetti and money just start falling.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Because I just think, listen, academic stuff we can teach, whatever, right?
Sure.
That's fine. And it's important stuff. I'm with you. Knowing how to read and write, very important stuff. Also not really natural stuff for the brain. Well, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. What is natural? But we kind of it gets a little snuffed out. It's just curiosity, like a desire. We all have that innately as kids. We have this desire to know more, to understand our surroundings, right? And she was like, wait, what? I was like, no, yeah, I promise. Just curiosity? Yep, that's it. That would be my biggest thing.
Yeah, her wanting to have more knowledge.
Right. And just interest in knowing more.
Right.
Because, like, if you have that, you can learn anything. I mean, anybody can learn anything. It's going to be a lot easier if you're curious.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, that was it was a fun moment. I just think, yeah, like you said, that questioning, that desire to know more. I mean,
Is that how you define curiosity for yourself? I'm just
yeah,
curious.
I think so. I, to me, that's what it is. I mean, you just that seeking out of information, right?
Hmm.
For so
Yeah.
many reasons. There's probably so many reasons we're curious. Um, Probably goes back to like, evolutionary thing of being wanting to understand what's happening, feel safe and
Right.
be aware, that kind of a thing, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe it's my anxiety that makes me really curious. I don't know. Is there a correlation there? I don't know. But yeah, I think what do you think? How would you define curiosity?
I think like right now in my brain I see like a couple of bullet points. So
Is that how your brain works? Do you
choosing
think in bullet points?
sometimes I really do. Sometimes when I'm like, oh, that's a really lofty question, I need to like grab onto information. Um I kind of had a moment where it's like terrible movie, love Ryan Reynolds, but Green Lantern where he goes and or no, maybe it's kind of like that one, but also sorry, I don't need to apologize for being a geek, like a comic book geek, but I definitely am. But it's
I mean,
when
you should. It's $1 million business right now anyway, so there's no apologies
it's a
needed.
billion-dollar business.
I'm sorry.
Disney.
Wrong letter.
Um, I just read an article on Disney saying
That's
we
amazing.
started to fail when we didn't make $1 billion worldwide after every Marvel
We
movie.
started. This
I
is what I'm
know.
saying.
Can
We're
you
at a
imagine?
totally different definition of failure.
You're right. Yeah.
Because I'm
But
like, and a million. If it ends in illion, I'm doing all right.
if it ends in sand, then we're done.
I mean, depending on what it is, even that might be acceptable. Like different definitions of failure and success. I'm saying.
I know, it's wild. Yeah, so I'm having this image of Stephen Strange, Doctor Strange,
Okay.
talking to this. He actually has floated out of Earth into space,
As you do. Yeah.
and he was talking to this
On a
being
Tuesday,
called
sure.
Dormammu, and that's what it feels like sometimes when like I'm really overwhelmed with a question and I'm trying to process.
Okay.
And he says, Dormammu, I've come to bargain. And it's just like, yeah, so I'm like bargaining with my brain to like produce facts quickly. So I bullet point
So
them.
bullet point it. Nice. I like that.
So yeah, back to your question.
Way to go
Curiosity,
back.
I
Well
think,
done.
yeah, looping it.
Looping it.
It definitely takes vulnerability,
Yes.
questioning. I think that it's
Isn't that
also
ironic though?
what's that?
That we're saying that curiosity takes vulnerability when at the same time curiosity helps you gain knowledge that can make you less vulnerable.
I love that about knowledge.
Right?
I think that's why it's so powerful, especially for people like
Yes.
me who are like recovering control freaks.
Right?
Which is probably a lot due to anxiety. I can honestly say, and I don't mean to mock recovery by any means, but truly
No.
like I definitely am a recovering control freak.
100%.
And I
I
actually
wait. I just want to clarify. I
yeah.
did not mean to say that I agree 100% that you are I did not mean that.
No, you should though.
I
You know
meant
how I
that
used to
I
be.
feel I'm in the same boat, rowing
Yes.
along with you
Yes,
in our
we are
canoe.
definitely rowing.
Yes.
The first time I realized that I was improving was actually on my wedding day when my sister-in-law looked at me and she was like,
That's huge.
You're so calm. And I'm like, yeah,
Wow.
I'm marrying your brother today. Like I'm super pumped. And meanwhile, behind us were like 25 bins that were labeled with like everything in it. So the wedding planner, it had pictures.
See? That's just that's setting yourself up for success, as we call it, right?
Right. But I knew I was going
That's
in the right
hilarious.
direction when I
There
got
you
that
go.
feedback.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, I think a lot of curiosity has to do with exploration, vulnerability, questioning. It's all about letting your mind take in something with your senses and then question it. Right?
Yeah. I love to hear talk about curiosity.
Who's that? Oh, I know
Neil
who it is.
deGrasse, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes.
I don't know. I just love hearing him talk. Like, let's be honest. Maybe it's because it's the only thing he talks about that I actually understand. Because astrophysics
That
is
is
like
true.
far beyond my realm of comprehension. But like, I just love him talking about curiosity because one of my favorite things he says is that basically kids are curious human beings
Right.
and what they're like, they are experimenting with their environment. I
Right.
just love that phrase, right? Like, because everything is new to them, is what he's saying, right? So he's like, they're learning how to interact with it. They're learning the rules of it, right? Rules that we know as adults because we learned them already,
Right.
but they were literally born. They've been on the planet 2 years. You know
Right.
what I mean? That's nothing. And they're just seeking out that knowledge. They just want to know more. They're exploring. I like that word too. Experimenting. I just think it's so fun. And like you said, so powerful. Like I was
Right.
working with a student recently
Mhm.
and the student is one of my favorite kind of students to work with, right? Because he is totally, totally capable, as every student is.
Sure.
He just doesn't believe it. He doesn't know that yet, right? And
Mhm.
so, but he's so curious. So we're working in
Mm.
math, not his forte. He'll tell you. I don't know what that means yet. I haven't seen that at all. But anyway, that's what he believes, right? And so I'm a very big fan of using a backdoor, right? So I was like, all right, hey, what do you want to do today? I've got some options. We can, play a game. Love games. Do a little Jeopardy action with some math skills, whatever. I was like, or we could do like this learning program, which nobody wants to do, which
Nobody
is totally
chooses
fair.
that.
No,
Yeah.
this is fine. I was like, or I've got like a math riddle. And he says, wait, what's a math riddle? I was like,
Mm.
dude, check it out. So it's like this puzzle. And like basically the first it has a couple of math sentences on it, It's like circle plus circle equals 4, for example. And then circle plus red square equals 9. Okay, so it kind
Sure.
of creates the different sentences. Very like algebraic thinking, whatever. And he looked at it and he's like, I want to do that. I was like, do you have any
Huh.
idea what's going on? He's like, no, but it looks fun. I want to do it.
How
Piqued his
cool.
curiosity. I was in, right?
Right.
So he goes in, first thing tries to attack it, and he's just jumping and throwing out answers, right? Which is one of my favorite things when kids do it. It's 5, 7, 14, 11, 92. Any other ones you want to try? Because those are all numbers. You got it, right? Nice guessing. Good job. And I was like, did you get it right away? And he's like, no. And I was like, is that okay? And he's like, no. And I was like, why not? I don't know it right away. Let's
Right.
figure it out together, right? So we start going through, figure it out. He's proud of himself at the end. Cool. Wonderful. Next time we meet, you got another math riddle?
I love
Yeah,
that.
buddy. I got a whole internet full of them. Come on. And so I pull up another one and we're going through it. And this time I see him like slow down, right? All the things we talked about in the last one, just slow down. Ask yourself, what do you see? Like, what do you notice? What's happening here? What pieces can you put together? Play detective, right? So he's slowing down. He's not saying, I don't know anymore. He's like, I don't
Right.
know. And I said, he goes, yet. I was like, that's right. That's right. You
The
don't know
power of
yet,
yet.
right?
Love it.
So we keep going, right? Third, he gets it, figures it out much faster. So we reflect on it, talk about it, all the good teacher things, blah, 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 blah.
Great.
Third day, you have another math riddle. So, like, he went from a kid who thought he was so bad at math,
Right.
and his curiosity is the thing that's pulling him out of it. Like, there's just so much power in being curious. You know what
Oh,
I mean?
absolutely.
Oh, it's so fun.
Have you ever talked to anyone you've worked with or parents or I always find this is an interesting question that throws people off in
Mm,
I don't know, meetings or even if you're talking to your friends.
yeah.
Where do you think curiosity died for you? I always think is such
Oh,
an interesting question.
yeah.
Um, and I've talked about it so many times where people are like, "What do you really mean?" And I'm like, "Well, um, I'm constantly working on my curiosity and
Mm,
vulnerability and I definitely choose people to be in my life who are curious
Right. Yeah.
and do that. And mostly are vulnerable and just open and think failure is fun to an extent. Um,
Or at
I
least part of the
just
process, you know. It
right.
doesn't
I
always have to
think
be
that
fun,
that's it. Right.
but just
Because
like,
I mean, obviously we
okay,
fail
and
and it's not always fun.
it's just
But
data. It may not be fun, but it's just information.
right. So I know I have an answer for that question. Have you ever thought about it? Do you have an answer for that question?
So as you were asking it, I was sitting here thinking, I can't relate personally.
Hmm.
I don't think my curiosity's ever died.
Has it dwindled ever?
No, I'm the nosiest of the nosy, which is curious to me. Like that's curiosity. No,
Nosiness
I
is
think
curious. Interesting. Okay.
I think there may be times that maybe it's waned or whatever, depending on life things. I think a lot of it is there are places you're not supposed to be curious, right?
Mm.
Different places where being curious is frowned upon. Asking questions is not looked upon
Oh
well,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I think I miss a lot of times like social cues where it's not acceptable to be curious because I'm just curious all the time.
Right.
So like if you're around me, just know I'm gonna ask and I'm gonna ask you weird questions. Like I'm gonna ask you like, oh wait, how did you get there? Like how does that work in your brain? Like what's the connection? With no judgment, I'm interest like genuinely interested in what that process was like for you. Like that's just how I am.
Right.
But I do know that I work with a lot of people, kids, adults. I mean, just interact with people on a daily basis who I can tell that curiosity has been dwindled out of them, right? Like it has been suppressed more. Like they're not as curious about things. I think I've become more curious about different things over time. Like that's changed.
Sure.
But I think a lot of it is like society. Can I go back to my friend Neil?
Your good friend Neil.
My bestie. So Neil deGrasse Tyson on Theo Von's podcast, Theo Von, the comedian, hilarious. Like just check him out. He's so funny. Um, but anyway, so he's on this podcast and he's talking about like he goes on to talk about like children again being curious, right? And how like a child sees an egg on a counter, reaches up for the egg, he's curious about it, right? What's your first reaction as a parent? No,
Me? Oh yeah.
no, well, I mean, generally speaking.
I was gonna be like, oh cool, you grabbed that inside. It'd be like, what?
Right, no, exactly, right? Inside, it's like, no, don't touch that egg. No, stop. And he says, he goes on to say, the number of experiments that you just halted by telling him no, right? The amount of information that you just took away from your child by telling him, no, don't touch that egg. Like he would have learned that this is hard, yet fragile. Well, that's kind of interesting, right? Or like this outside is hard and the inside is really soft and like, oh, but there's also two layers on the inside. That's interesting. I wonder why that is, right? Or if I put this on heat, what happens to the egg? Like all these things he could learn about this egg. He can't learn now because he was told no. His curiosity was stopped.
Right.
We don't ask questions, we don't touch. And I think a lot of it is those kind of things where we just don't want those questions, or we get annoyed when our toddler's asking us why. Why is the sky blue? Why is this? Why is this? Stop asking why, right? Like, okay, we don't always respond that way. We might want to, fine, but like we get like, you know what I mean? Oh, stop asking. Like, go to something else.
No,
Here's an
I
iPad,
hear,
right?
I hear one of the things that I always say when someone asks me that question is I think part of when it dies is when questioning is no longer cute. And
Yes,
I think that's kind of what you're
yes,
hinting at with toddlers is when
yeah,
questioning is no longer being valued because I
yes.
think I really do think that it dies when learning mentors get to a point where they want submissive learners rather than curious learners.
Oh,
I I
wait,
think
gut punch.
it's true
Like,
though, right?
so true. And honestly, I'm kind of convicted on the other side, like as a learner, as a student, right? Like there's so many times as a student, I was so complacent or compliant. I mean,
Mm.
sorry, just to
Compli
like, I
oh
was
yeah,
just
because you
compliant, like
knew.
doing the right thing. Okay, I'll do that. And then,
Right.
like, when I be like, working with students, I'm like, "What? You don't get to ask me that, you just do what I ask, like, what are you talking about?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Wait a second, no, 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 ask me again. Let me give you a better answer this time. Let me tell you the why." You know?
It's
It's
definitely
so
hard,
true,
I
though.
think, like, first year teaching when you get into a classroom and everybody talks about how you need to have classroom management.
Right.
And then that becomes kind of I don't know if you remember your first few years interacting in a classroom. Like, even
Yeah,
before I
yeah.
was in a classroom, like, during undergrad or even when I was teaching, like, at camp or Bible school or whatever,
Mhm.
the whole concept of making sure that you're interacting with people so they pay attention. And a lot
Right.
of that has to do with control and no longer has to do with curiosity, and I do think
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
if there were programs that taught people that if you deploy curiosity in your classroom management actually comes right along with it because you
Oh,
engage
100%.
people.
Yes.
It's about engagement,
Yes. It's
but
about engagement and being curious about other people, right? Like, knowing that we don't all learn the same.
right,
So me in a classroom will not look the same as what a teacher might expect or want, and then I won't look the same in classroom as you look in a classroom as a student, as a learner, right? Or in a
right,
learning setting of any kind.
right.
As a student, I sat in the back of the class.
Huh,
You wanna know why? Because I know why.
because you could be complacent?
Nope. Because then I wasn't distracted by things going on behind me.
Oh, interesting. That's a great strategy.
Was I paying attention? Yes. Did it look like it? Not always. You know why? I doodle,
Yeah,
right?
to
In
focus, right.
meetings. I would love
I
I
loved
would
your
love sitting in
doodles.
meetings, people sit next to me, right? They'd be like, "Oh, what are you drawing?" My infamous tree of circles. Like, I don't always look like an active listener, active learner. Like, I don't.
Right,
Doesn't mean I'm not listening or learning. Learning just looks different for us all. Ask the questions. Be
right.
curious.
I definitely think that, like, adults in particular you talked about meetings, and I have 2 things about meetings for adults out
They
there.
should be an email.
Well, a lot of the times they probably could be. But I think that there are people who abuse questions, like, in questioning and curiosity to
Mm,
get laughs, to be sarcastic, to waste time. And I do think that the idea that there's no bad question reinforces poor behavior in my mind too.
right.
But I do believe there's value in saying there's no bad intentional question.
Yes.
I think when you invite
Yes.
intentionality into questioning,
Always.
that enhances curiosity.
Yeah.
And again, it's a form of engagement. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that people sometimes miss with curiosity is it's so engaging. It's engaging
Yes.
on a personal level
Yes.
to every human being. It's about
Yes.
getting the connection in there.
Yes. That makes me
Um,
think of, like, so as a kid, I think you asked me one of the other times that we talked about, like, when was the one of the first times I knew my brain was different from other people's.
yes, yeah,
And honestly, my family is full of neurodivergent people. I'm neurodivergent. I think weirdly differently, whatever that means. I don't know.
right.
I think how I think, which I can tell you how I think, but that's a whole nother conversation. Anyway, I was just surrounded by people who kind of like I could see the similarities with, right? So I never really noticed. And then one day, I was maybe in middle school-ish, talking to my mom, telling her, I don't even remember what I was talking about. But I remember her saying, "Wait, wait, hang on, hang on, hang on, hang on. Pause for a second. Time out. Hang on, conductor." That's what she said. "Hang on, conductor. I lost you. Either your train came off the tracks or I got off at the last stop and I didn't know that we were going to keep going." And I
Oh,
was
I
like,
love that.
"Right?" And she's like, "Your train of thought." And I was like, "Oh, okay, hang on. So back it up. Hang on, let me tell you what I got last, and then you take it from there and like bring me with you." And I started thinking about like, how did I get from point A in my thought to point B? It's like her being curious about my train of thought
Mm.
then created so much curiosity in me to like pay attention to those things. Like, no judgment. It was literally just genuine curiosity
Oh, yeah.
from her that sparked a lot of that in me too. And I was like, wait, that's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. I
And
mean,
just
being curious about yourself requires metacognition. And
Oh, for
that's what
sure.
she was teaching you. Love
Exactly.
that.
Right? Yeah. I think when you're curious about other people, it allows them to become curious about themselves too. And then like just curious in
Yes.
general. You know what I mean?
I
That's
do
pretty cool.
I do think that that's so important. And I think that a lot of times it's so interesting that example that you gave of your mom, because there's so many times that we are actually being curious that we're just not noticing. And I know from my own experience, I
Mm-hmm.
think the first time the first time Trader Joe's came to my area of the world
Okay.
after moving back up north,
Okay.
um my favorite place to go to be curious about new items in the grocery store is Trader Joe's.
Yes. Yes.
Like, um, and when we go to the
It's
grocery
the
store,
packaging.
it's partially the packaging, but it's also like,
The Hawaiian shirts.
wow,
Yeah.
the whole the ringing of the bells. This
Definitely.
it's just it's
It's the
amazing,
2 buck chuck.
especially
I mean, honestly.
the I honestly, they like
It's good
it's
stuff.
the cost, it's the like, how do you sell flowers here for like $8 when you go to like a different grocery store and they're 25 for the same amount, or 40?
Now
Uh-uh.
that sounds like a curious question, my friend.
See?
Oh,
And
see,
I
it's
think
everywhere.
it is. And I think that was like something that I really started thinking more about. Was it really is, curiosity is in everything you do everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I would
Mm-hmm.
challenge someone to tell me otherwise, because when I go to a grocery store and I see a new item, immediately my brain is like, okay, let's pick it up to look at it,
Yep.
or no, I'm not going to get it today, or no, but that was really cool. Like, if you're noticing something with your senses, or you're having some kind of reaction at all and you've put focus into it, you are being curious. If you're
Yes.
people watching and making judgments
Oh,
about other people,
that's
which of
one of my
course no
favorite
one
things.
admits to,
No, I
but like,
mean, it's not one of my favorite things to do.
right. It's like, but as soon as you see someone's visual appearance, in your
Yeah.
mind, you're curious about them if you made some kind of judgment, or even if you don't make a judgment and you just notice them, it's because you're curious about them,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're put off by it or not. It's the same thing with like weather outside. If you have a physical or emotional response to others getting rained on, or there being snow, or
Mm.
whatever, it's because you're curious about something. If you're in a meeting, if you're talking about meetings, if you're
Blech.
in a meeting and someone says something that sounds absolutely absurd and you're like, why did you say that? It grabbed your attention because you're
Yeah.
like, why would you have said that?
Yeah.
Or there are other people who maybe sparked your curiosity and you're like, wow, that's a really interesting thought. But
Yeah.
we do it all the time and
All the
we're
time.
not aware of our
Yeah.
curiosity. And I really think it's because there's a as we grow older, society tells us there's no real value as we get older in still being curious. And I
Mm.
really think people who thrive in
Lies.
old
Yeah.
ages is
Yep.
because they're still curious and they're
Yes.
still learning and they're still
Yes.
active.
Yes. You know what I love about everything you were just saying
Mm.
is that now you know this about me, but I'm a huge fan of the scientific method
Yes.
as an approach to life. And the first step is to observe, right?
Right.
And what is observing except for like noticing a difference, noticing something, looking around and being like, I noticed that.
Right.
What's going on with that? And you start asking, it's everything you just said, right? Curiosity is observing, curiosity is taking that first step in that scientific method. It's asking the question, like it's that same thing. Looking around and being intentional, like, what's that? Like you said, we aren't even intentional with this something. We just do it.
Right.
But we typically will get shut down somehow. We stop, oh, like whatever. I don't care. Or we
Right.
ask the question about how can you sell these flowers for $8 and in other places they're 20. And then we just keep buying Trader Joe's. We don't actually investigate more. Why is that happening?
Right.
Why are we being charged so much for flowers when they grow outside and God's green earth? You know,
Right.
weird. I thought about that the other day. I was like, what a weird industry.
Yeah.
They're like, it's just pretty stuff that grows outside. And someone was like, I can make money here. And they
Right.
do.
Lots.
Bank,
Like
right?
lots.
And then we've had this conspiracy theory that that's what you have to have on the 4th of July. Really? Nothing says the 4th of July like a bouquet of flowers. I love when my brain does that. Come on, neurons, you can do it. Get to the right place.
Oh, brains, you are fascinating.
Oh, we have this conspiracy theory that for Valentine's Day, that makes
Oh,
more sense,
no,
right? Yeah,
okay, yeah,
see the yeah, that makes
got
sense.
it.
That tracks.
Uh-huh.
You have to buy flowers, and they jack up the prices. Then these things grow outside. What? Anyway,
I love that you called it a conspiracy theory.
it is from Big Flora. I tell you what, that's what we should be curious about is Big Flora. I just I'm starting it now.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh.
but yeah, I don't know. It's just so fun. You know what? Also, okay, you ever been like telling somebody something, trying to teach them something, and you're like, you've gone over a few different times, and you're like, dude, why are you just not getting it? Right? Or like I've heard, parents might get frustrated, like, I don't understand. Why are you not understanding what I'm telling you? And I
Right,
think we're asking the right question with the wrong intention.
right,
That is the question. Why are you not getting it? How can I help you get this better? What am I doing to help you get this? That I'm like as the one who knows the information, trying to share it with you. How can I get you to get it better? What's going on with you? You know what I mean? How can I do
right.
that? Like it's the right question, wrong intention, I think. But that's the thing, right? I think if we to undie, no, that's not to bring it back to Lazarus curiosity. There we go. There we go.
Lazarus
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Wow, what
It's
a
now a verb. I don't know if
yeah.
you knew that, but it's a verb now. But to revive curiosity,
Mhm.
I think there are a few ways to go about it. What do you think?
Okay.
What would you say or like now that we've talked about curiosity dying? Do you think we can bring it back? Is what I should ask you first.
Oh,
If I
a
was
million
if I was
percent.
if I was good at Socratic questioning, I would first say, "What do you think about this?" But
Oh
whatever.
yeah. No, I say bring the paddles full force. Yeah, no, I absolutely do. I really do think um there's this really interesting swing. I wasn't thinking about this before, but I'm thinking about it now. I do think modeling and asking questions and being vulnerable, I think curiosity is all about that. I
Yeah.
just had this flashback to when I was getting my master's, sitting in a classroom of people from all over the world.
Mm,
And the person who inspired me the most, I actually did part of my master's with my older sister at the same time. I don't know if I ever
that's
told you that.
cool. No, huh?
Yeah, so I sat in a classroom in awe of my sister. My sister asked 40 questions a class,
That's amazing.
and she's very intelligent. She's very like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
academically inclined. She asked so many questions. So at
Right.
the end of class, we would all get together. We would all talk. We would share food from like different cultures and communities and things. And then we would all sit and question. And I do think questioning in the beginning, like in kindergarten, you're talking about in early elementary, is
Yeah.
very valued. And
Yeah.
then there's like this kind of it's more important to be well behaved. So curiosity is
I
not
mean,
always fostered.
yeah, like I told you before, like I didn't ask questions in classes because I didn't want there to be any I didn't want people to think I wasn't a genius.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I
If
think
I didn't ask,
lecture.
then people thought I got it all. You know what I mean?
Right. And I do think that lecture formatting is a place where it really goes to die because there's no
Oh, there's no room.
communication or
It's not even
questioning.
there's not even a place for it. It's not even
Right.
allowed. Yeah, yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of the students I work with in higher education, I've realized recently that um, professors seem to be going back to lecturing, but I do think it's
Mm,
very hard. It must be very difficult when you have a class of 100 to 300 kids.
right.
Unless you did something like a flipped classroom and then you met one on one with each student, even that
And how are
like
you
would
gonna
be
do that?
super
Like
time consuming or in
right,
groups.
right.
But I do think there are ways to do it. I think it just makes it a lot more strenuous. But I
Yeah, yeah,
also
yeah.
think there's an expectation. When you get to your master's degree, though, or a doctorate,
Yeah.
class sizes are much smaller.
Shrinking, right,
So
sure.
I do think that the ability to question becomes more freeing as well.
Right. Right.
But that's why I so believe in personalized education, because I think
Yeah.
personalizing educational opportunities and
Hmm.
personalizing learning in
Yeah.
general is so important. Um, and I think in order for us to foster curiosity again, modeling, asking questions, being vulnerable, choosing
Yep.
your
Yep.
community, I think
Yep.
is so vital. Be
Yeah.
around people who question constantly.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling like you're in a place, I know for me, it's interesting. I just talked about my older sister. When she was younger, she was bullied a lot
Interesting. Yeah.
because
Oh,
she
that's interesting.
questioned all the time
Right.
and because it
Right.
seemed weird. Um,
Right.
and watching her overcome that and watching
That's
her
amazing.
be,
And go like stay consistent, like stay herself, and so
she really
and
did.
not change. Like that's awesome.
I
That's
do
really
think
cool.
you very much like you have talked about, like you've always questioned. I don't think I did in school as much. I did, but I would do it in a one-on-one setting with a learning mentor, or
Mm,
I would do it with a friend, or I would ask my parents. But
right.
it was not very often that I would do it in the middle of class, but not for the reason that you had. It was more for the reason that um I thought there was such a thing as dumb questions. And
Right.
so
Oh,
I make
gotcha.
it
Yeah.
very, very important to personalize each experience with anybody that I work with, so they understand that they can first off be vulnerable with me, but
Right.
also ask me every single question, because there are a million ways to answer questions that are
Yep.
personalized to your brain and your
Yeah.
experience.
I start. I mean, I just ask questions all the time with people.
Right.
Yeah. Um. I think I'm with you. Like modeling it for sure. Just like live a life of exploring, asking why. Like be that person, and then that's gonna happen too. One of my favorite things to give specific questions to ask. I love asking, like turning around the why.
Yes.
So I make it very clear, with especially with students that I'm working with. I'm going to ask you why, and I need you to understand two things. One, it does not mean you're wrong.
Right.
So if I ask you why, it doesn't mean you're wrong. Don't automatically just flip your answer to the other to something else, because it's not that. I'm asking you why because I want to understand your thinking. How did you get to that conclusion? So I can know how to better explain it to you. So if you
Right.
can help me with that, I'm going to help you understand things better. So like we kind of both have a job here.
Right.
Um, and I just love asking why. And you know what? You know how I said earlier about like when toddlers ask why all the time and it can be annoying or whatever. Here's my, here's my tip. Ask them why they think it is.
Right.
Mind blown. And listen to them. Make sure you listen. If you're going to ask the question, you need to listen
Right.
and listen to them tell you why do they think it is. Let them put things together and then ask more questions. Well, tell me more about that. That's my favorite phrase. Tell me more.
Yes.
Tell me more about that. So it's not judgmental, right?
Right.
It's a safe thing, not even a question. And it's just like, I want to hear more about it. I'm curious about you and your thinking and why you think that. And if I'm curious about you, it's gonna make more curiosity. You know what I
Right.
mean? Or breed more, whatever the phrase is. Yeah. So
I do
that's kind of
think
what I think there.
curiosity breeds curiosity, though.
Oh, for
I
sure.
agree with you.
For sure. In yourself and in others.
Right.
The more you
Like,
ask
can you
questions.
think of, I immediately, when you said that, was thinking of different learning environments that I've been in, or as a learner that I've been in, but also when we would push into classrooms and we'd observe other teachers. I think the classrooms that had the most learning going on, you could feel when you walk in the room curiosity.
And excitement.
Right.
Because that's what it
And
feels like.
vulnerability,
A little bit of that too. Yeah.
which is
But
not
if you make it
tangible.
but if you make it a safe enough place that everyone's asking, it's you're not vulnerable anymore. It just is.
Right. Oh, I
It's
love that.
only
That's right.
vulnerable if we have this condition that it's not safe to be curious. But
Right.
if it's safe to be curious, there is no more vulnerability.
That's true. Love that.
So it's like you don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
I think yeah. And just making it interesting. You know, finding those little things that make it like in school, I never cared about history. Not even a
Really?
little bit. Yeah.
Huh.
No. Geography was interesting,
Right.
all those kind of things. And like learning about cultures and how people thought, like, and how people were in different, learning about civilizations. Yes.
Right.
Dates, wars, who's, I'm trying to be PG here, whose man parts are bigger than the others, that kind of a thing. Did not care. I didn't care.
Right.
Doesn't mean anything to me. And then I started getting interested in food and food from other cultures
Yeah.
and learning about like why Vietnamese banh mi sandwiches. I know I didn't pronounce that correctly. I apologize. Um, I don't remember the right tones. It's a tonal language, and I can't remember where the right tones are supposed to be for that. But it's made on French baguette. Weird.
You know,
Why is that?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Because at one time, in history,
Right.
they were colonized by French. I did not care about that in the classroom. But you make it come to life with food and culture and people. Now I'm interested. Now I'm more curious. Now I care.
Right.
And then that's me. Okay, well, where else is this happening in food with these, and it's all
A
over.
lot of places. Yeah.
Right? I think, like you said, curiosity breeds curiosity. Like the other night, okay? I, as you do, go down the YouTube black hole of guess what? What did I put
Snakes?
on?
Was it snakes?
You know it. Again, I don't want one. There will never be a snake of any kind, reptile of any kind in my house. I'm just fascinated. And I'm fascinated because the first person I saw, Snake Discoveries, the channel, she's so excited and curious and interested about this. And I was hooked, captivated, right? And she's calling them cute. And I'm like, how? Right? How are these cute? What do you mean? Then the other day I found myself watching one. I'm like, oh my God, that is kind of cute. What's happening? Still won't own one. It's fine. But like her curiosity made me curious, right? I just needed to turn my brain off. So I go down the YouTube black hole of reptiles at this point. So it just starts going recommended. Here's another related one. Here's another related video, blah, blah, blah. Lots of different keepers and whatever. I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting because they all reptiles, common thread, right? Running between them. But each of these different channels had like a different slant to it, of course, because we all learn differently. We all think differently. Brains are different. Cool. But what was interesting is not just how they all had a different perspective of things or different, maybe, this one prefers snakes, this one prefers lizards, not even that, but the like side interests, right? So once they get into reptiles, there's so much more to learn because reptiles need all these other things. They need food. They have certain environments that they need, right? All this kind of stuff. And so I realized this one person, as they were creating these settings and environments, habitats, there we go, enclosures, there we go, for these animals. They start doing bioactive enclosures, making it as realistic as possible, right? So soil with real bugs in it to kind of clean up the area, real plants, all this stuff. And he started just getting really interested in plants. Like he's like has favorite plants now, right? Knows them all by Latin name, all that kind of stuff, alongside the reptiles. Another person, similar thing. And they started getting into like breeding all those rodents, like not rodents, all the bugs, the isopods and springtails. I know the bugs. Yes, that's where we are in this whole learning experience. And so like that's kind of like they went that way with it also. And this other interest that they kind of acquired. I just love that like
Right.
becoming curious about something opens the doors to become curious about all these other things.
Yes.
And just having so many like avenues of curiosity, I think is just, it's so fun to me because I think
love
that
that.
leaning into curiosity just brings so much goodness, right? So many other things, unexpected things you didn't even know about. I just think it's fun.
I love that so much. Avenues of curiosity.
Right? That's kind of fun.
If people
I don't know where that came
understood,
from.
it's brilliant though. If people understood that, I think learning and curiosity would be so much more celebrated than it really is.
Yeah.
And I think it could be
Yeah.
seamlessly added to any learning experience.
Right. Which is everything. Everything is learning.
Right.
Right? But
I
like
think
they all chose these different avenues of learning.
by choosing curiosity, you're choosing to be an intentional learner.
Right. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Thanks for listening to Everything is Learning.
We'll catch you next time.